So here we are at the whiteboard, and I have written down 4 intervals that we are going to analyze and write the labels for. So let's get right to it. Step number 1 is to figure out the distance. So we'll start over here, and we're going to write the intervallic label on this blank space. Let's count the distance between this D and this A in the treble clef. Now it's important to remember when you are counting, you start with D as number 1, okay? So D, and then line, space, and whatever number we end up with, that's the distance. So D is number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this interval is a fifth. Okay? It's important to remember sometimes my students will start counting 1 on right above the lowest note. That's not right. This doesn't count as 0. It's not 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not correct. So make sure the bottom note of all these, when we count, we're going to start with number 1 as the bottom note. So it's a fifth. That's fine. Step number 2 is to figure out whether or not this A belongs in this note's key signature. And if it does, hopefully it'll be a perfect or major interval. So let's do that right now. How do we decide what key signature this interval exists in? We always use the bottom note's key signature. Never in these exercises at all will you ever be extracting key signatures from the top note of the interval or the highest note. So we get most of our information from the bottom. So we counted from the bottom, and now we're going again to use the bottom note's key signature. This is a D. I know because I memorized my key signatures that D major has 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. This is an A. That's not F sharp or C sharp. So I know that the 5th note of a D major scale actually is A. So A exists in the key of D major. A happens to be the dominant, the 5th note of a D major scale. Therefore, what I am looking at here is a perfect 5th. And that's the right answer. So, just to recap, step number 1 was to calculate the distance. We know that that was a 5th, and then we used D major's key signature to figure out the quality. I think it's easy. Let's do the next one. So, step number 1 is to figure out the distance. The lowest note, we start with number 1. The lowest note is a G, so we're going to start with G. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a 4th. We went 1, space, line, space. G, 2, 3, 4. So, it is a 4th. And in my intervallic label, I will write that down here. And now we have to figure out the quality. So step number 2 is to figure out whether or not this C actually exists in the key of G major. Because I know what G major's key signature is, I know G major has 1 sharp and it is F sharp. This isn't an F sharp, that's a C. So C is in the scale of G major. In fact, the 4th note of a G major scale is C. So we can find this interval in the G major scale, and this happens to be a perfect 4th. And we did that by using the key signature, again, of the bottom note, not the top note. Okay, now over here, we have an F sharp and a D. This one is a little bit more tricky, but let's stick to the steps. Step number 1 is to figure out the distance. Let's do that now. We start with number 1 here. 1, line, space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a 6th. And we know from what I taught you at the piano that 6 are going to be either major or minor. So the distance is a 6th. Now, we have to figure out, step 2, is this note in the key of F sharp major? You have not learned the key signature of F sharp major. You won't learn that till grade 6. So this is when we have to use our emergency procedures. Take your hand and cover the F sharp and don't panic. Now, let's just pretend it is F to D. So let's forget about the F sharp, let's just figure out the interval from F to D. It's still a sixth. Let's go, instead of the key signature of F sharp major, let's just relax and do this in the key of F major, using just the white notes on the piano as if we were playing a C major scale. So, is D the sixth note of an F major scale? Yes, it is. F major has one flat, it's B flat. So the sixth note of an F major scale is D. So right now, with my hand covering this interval, that is a major sixth. Now, the last thing we have to do is to remove our hand, and now we see a sharp. So, when the sharp came back in, the bottom note went up, and the distance between the two notes, or in this case my hand, got smaller. So what's one smaller than a major interval? We know that that's a minor interval. So when I cover my hand, this is a major sixth, and now when I remove my hand, it gets smaller, and we can confirm that this is actually a minor sixth, and we did that without even having to know the key signature of F sharp major. Hooray. Last one, B flat to C. We're getting good at this by now. Step one is to figure out the distance. We have a B flat and a C, they are right beside each other, that's a second. We don't even have to count. And step two is to figure out the quality. In this case, the lowest note is a B flat, and luckily we do know the key of B flat major. It is B flat and E flat. This is a C, so the second note of a B flat major scale actually is C. Therefore, this is just a simple, good old major second, and we know that because we use the key signature of the bottom note, B flat major, and the second note of B flat major is a C. So, that's how we write intervallic labels. Notice the steps I gave you, we actually wrote the labels backwards, right? We calculated the distance first, we calculated the number first, and then we added the quality later. Do not write fifth perfect, or fourth perfect, or sixth minor, or second major. That's not how we say them, but it is how we figure them out in the direction I taught you. So make sure not to flip intervallic labels. For the next question, we are going to be actually writing intervals ourselves. Now here, I've already written out the intervallic labels, and our job is to write the top note and make what we see up here match the label that has been given to us down here. So the steps are pretty similar. We're going to be checking distance and quality. That's pretty much all there is to it. So let's start out with this F in the bass clef, and the intervallic label we've been given is a major seventh. Let's do the exact same thing. First, let's worry about the distance, and then after we will worry about the quality. So we're going to be writing notes above, and the question might ask you to write above or below, so make sure you read the question carefully. We're going to be doing above. So first, let's count up 7 steps, using F as number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We land on the note E. So let's start out by just writing a seventh, and there it is. So there we have the distance taken care of. Now we have to worry about the quality. So we've been asked to write a major seventh. So we know that seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths are major intervals just when left alone in a major scale. So let's ask ourselves whether this note exists in this note's key signature. This note is F. F major's key signature is 1 flat, B flat. There are no E's, there are no E flats or E sharps. There's just E's in an F major scale, so the 7th note of an F major scale is in fact E. So this, just left alone, is fine. This is a major 7th just the way it is. So we did the distance and we did the quality. Easy. Alright, let's go to the next question. We have a B down here, and the label says minor 6th. First step is let's worry about the distance. So let's just write a sixth above the note B. Starting with B as number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We land on a G. Okay, so there we've written a sixth. Now we don't know what quality it is, so let's check that out. We're going to be using the key signature of the bottom note, which is B, so we're going to be thinking in the key of B major. Now we ask ourselves, does this note G exist in the key of B major? B major has 5 sharps. I know that because I'm smart and I've memorized my key signatures, and so have you. Sharps are Father Charles goes down and. So there was a G sharp in there. Father Charles goes. G sharp. So right now we do not have a G sharp. So this isn't the naturally occurring interval in a B major scale. So if there was a sharp here, that would be a major sixth. Now, right now there's a G natural, which means the interval got smaller. So if you make a major interval smaller, it is a minor sixth. So actually, just if we leave this alone, it is correct. It's a minor sixth. Next one. This one's going to be tough. We have a C flat, which is a note you might not often see, and we've been asked to write a perfect fifth. So let's keep doing the steps and first figure out the distance. So let's write a fifth above C. C is number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a fifth right now, so that's correct. And here comes the difficult part. We need to be thinking in the key of C flat major in order to figure out whether or not this is a perfect fifth. Now, you do not know what the key of C flat major is yet, because you are in level 5. You'll learn about it in level 6. So, because we don't know what the key signature is, we need to do the emergency procedure thing with your hand and cover the flat so we feel better. Now this should look a lot more comfortable. We have a C going to G, and you probably do know what that is. The fifth note of a C major scale is G. So right now, this is a perfect fifth. Hooray. Satisfied? Now we remove our hand, and we have to ask ourselves, what did this flat do to the interval? Did it make it bigger or smaller? So we have a perfect fifth in C major, and then we moved our hand away and there was a flat. And that flat made the C go down a semitone. That's too big to be a perfect fifth. So what we have to do is bring the top note also down a semitone to make sure that the size stays the same. So just like C to G is a perfect fifth, C flat to G flat is also the same size. It's also a perfect fifth because the notes were lowered equally. So all we'd have to do is put a flat beside this G, and now we know that it's a perfect fifth. And you can even check one more time. C to G is a perfect fifth. They both got lowered equally. It's still a perfect fifth. And the last one, we have a weird note, A sharp, and you're probably already thinking, I don't know what A sharp major's key signature is either. That's okay, we'll start with distance first. Let's count up, starting with the note A as number 1. 1, 2, 3. We land on the note C. So we have a third right now. And now we have to ask ourselves, step 2, is this note in the bottom note's key signature? And I don't know what A sharp major's key signature is, and in fact, we don't have an A sharp major key signature unless you're playing something by Scriabin. So let's do the emergency procedure and cover our hands, cover the sharp with our hand and analyze it just using the white notes. Now the bottom note is simply an A. Is C in the key of A major? And if you said no, you are correct. A major has 3 sharps, F sharp, G sharp, and C sharp. This is not a C sharp, this is a C natural. So right away, having it have a C natural, A, it's smaller than a major third. So if it was A to C sharp, it would be a major third, and not having a C sharp made the interval smaller. So right now we are looking at a minor third, which means this label temporarily is correct. Now if we remove our hand, what happened to this note? The sharp made the bottom note go up. Now it's too small to be a minor. So again, like we did before, we are going to have to raise this note up a semitone to maintain that minor distance between the two notes. So to raise a C by one semitone, we need to add a sharp symbol. And I can do that there. And now it is both a third and minor. We'll double check. A to C is a minor third. And if we raise both the notes up equally, the space didn't change. So it's still a minor third. Even though the notes are different on the piano, technically the space in between the two notes did not change. So it's still a minor third. And that is how you write intervals, by adding a note above the note given to you on your exam. Now we're going to do the same thing we just did, except instead of writing notes above the given note, we are going to be creating intervals by filling in a note below. Alright, same thing. I've written 4 notes, and the intervallic labels have been given to us. So let's start here. The only thing that's going to change is, instead of when we do the distance, we're going to be counting down. So, a perfect fourth. Start with the distance. What is a fourth underneath E? E remains, we count number 1. E is number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there we are with a fourth down here on the note B. That's the distance of a fourth. Now we have to ask ourselves about the quality. Now, let's look at the lowest note. Right now the lowest note is a B. A B major's key signature has sharps in it. So I already know that this can't be a perfect fourth because there's no E flats in the key of B major. B major uses sharps, not flats. So we can do 2 things. We can cover it with our hand and use white notes, or we can change this to a sharp and try it out, or we can change it to a flat and try it out. Let's try changing this to a key signature we know. Let's use B flat. So if this was a B flat, what's the fourth note of a B flat major scale? We have B flat, C, D, and then E flat is the fourth note of a B flat major scale. And this is an E flat. So I think if we put a B flat here, E flat will correctly be the fourth note of a B flat major scale, and this will in fact be a perfect fourth. So that's a little bit of trial and error. Let's do the next one. Minor seventh. Again, we are going to be writing the note below, so let's count down a seventh and take care of the distance first. We'll start with C. C is number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We land on the note D. Okay, so we've taken care of the distance. Now let's look at the quality. We need a minor seventh. First, let's just analyze what we've written. So forget about the label, let's just figure this out. D is the lowest note. In a D major scale, what's the 7th note? The 7th note of a D major scale is actually C sharp. So right now, on the board, we are looking at a major 7th. Okay? Now the label is asking us for a minor 7th. We know minor intervals are 1 semitone smaller than major intervals. So how can we reduce the size between these two notes? We can't change this note because this was given to us. We need to work with the note we are writing. So we need this note to go up and get closer to that C sharp, and the symbol that I can write here that makes that note go up is a sharp. And now, because it is 1 smaller than a major, we have created a minor 7th. So D to C sharp is a major 7th, and now with the sharp we raise the bottom note up 1 semitone, the distance got smaller, and it is a minor 7th. Next question says a perfect 8th. This is my favorite question because it's easy. What's a perfect 8th below the note D? D. Done. Tonic to tonic, it's an octave, it's an 8th. all you have to do is write the same note an octave above or below depending on what question you're dealing with. And the last one, we have a B, and we need to write a minor third underneath this B. Let's start with the distance. B is number 1, 1, 2, 3. We end up with a G. We've taken care of the distance. Now let's look at the quality. Let's try and figure out just what we've written. So forget about this for now. If the lowest note is G, we're in the key signature of G major. The third note of a G major scale is B, so right now we are looking at a major third, which is nice, but it's not correct based on the label we were given, which is a minor third. And a minor third is smaller than a major third by 1 semitone. So we have to ask what symbol can we put beside the note we wrote, which is a G, that will make it go up 1 semitone and get closer to the B so that the interval is smaller. And the symbol we can use happens to be A sharp. Now that G was raised 1 semitone and the distance became smaller, and now it is successfully a minor third. And the very last thing I have to teach you about before we go to the homework page is about a rare and mysterious beast called the Unison. Unisons are strange things for piano players. In fact, if you are a piano player, you've probably never seen them before, but if you're not, perhaps you've seen them, or who knows. They're very rare in the wild. So let's just look. This is a perfect unison, perfect unison, perfect unison. If you happen to come across one of these rare and mysterious and magical beasts, this is what you do. They have a given note, and it doesn't matter whether the question says write above or below. If you have to write a perfect unison, all you do is write another whole note right beside the note that they gave you. And that is a unison. It's supposed to be 2 different people playing the same note at the same time. Now the reason pianists never see this is because you can't do that, because there's only 1 note on the piano, but I'm told other people do them. Let's do this one, a perfect unison. This one is a D flat, so you do not have to write another D flat again. All you have to do is write another whole note right beside, and you have another perfect unison. And over here there's a G sharp. You don't have to write another G sharp. All you have to do is write another G. And that's it. And now, I hope you go to the website and download your homework sheet and do it before I show it to you. And you can pause the video, and then you can come back and I will go through the whole thing with you, and you will be happy and confident and know how to write intervals.